What we will be doing is replacing a hard drive in my computer with a new hard drive that has more capacity and a faster data transfer rate. Specifically, I'm going to be replacing one of my data hard drives. Now, data hard drive is really my term to describe a hard drive where I keep my files, such as Word documents, Photoshop documents, pictures, videos, and so forth. I use the term system hard drive to refer to the hard drive that contains the operating system and other executables. The computer I have is an Alienware desktop that I bought from Dell. It is several years old. When I first got it, I had Windows 7 on it. Since then, I've installed Windows 10 on it. Now, this computer has 4 internal drive bays, and it actually has 4 hard drives in it already. And I'm going to show you how I move the hard drives around in order to install this one. In your computer, if you don't have all drive bays filled, then it's going to be a little bit easier for you to do it. If, on the other hand, your desktop computer only has 2 drive bays, you might have to use an external storage medium, such as in this case. This is a Western Digital 4 terabyte external hard drive that connects through USB 3.0. If you're limited to drive bays, you might have to copy the data on the drive you're going to replace to an external storage, then insert your new hard drive in the computer, get it ready, and we're going to show you how to do that in this video, and then copy the data back from this drive to your new one. But I have enough internal drive bays that I do not need to use an external hard drive in order to make this change. My current data drive is a 1 terabyte drive with a rotational speed of 5400 RPM. This drive is a 4 terabyte drive and its RPM is 7200. So I'm going to get more capacity and I'm going to get a faster data transfer rate. So let's get started. At this time, we want to make sure that we can find the disk management utility, because we'll be using it after we install our physical hard drive to get the drive ready to be used. Click on Start. Now in my case, I actually have the control panel over to the right. If you don't see control panel, just put your cursor in this area, but don't click anything, and then type control panel. And then click it. If your control panel looks like this, come over to View by Category and select either large or small icons. Click on Administrative Tools and then open up Computer Management. Here's the disk management utility, so select it or rearrange it so we can see. As you can probably tell, I actually have 4 physical hard drives in my computer. Windows numbers them 0, 1, 2, and 3. Disk 0 is the operating system disk. Disk 1 is my primary data disk. Disk 2 is my secondary data disk. And this is the one we're actually going to upgrade. We'll be replacing it with a 4 terabyte drive. Disk 3 is actually a clone of disk 0. This is how I actually back up my operating system. On a regular basis, I use cloning software to clone disk 0 to disk 3. In this way, if I have a problem with disk 0, it gets corrupted or damaged, I'll just open up the computer, physically remove this hard drive, and then move disk 3 into the disk 0 chassis, and I'll be back up and running. So here you'll see the hard drives. If you ever looked at this before, especially on a Dell computer, you can see that Dell divides the operating system disk into 3 partitions. Recovery partition you won't be able to see in File Explorer, but it was there after you've had the computer a little while and you ran into an issue, you need to recover the operating system. This partition will help you do it. Now in my case, I've had my computer for a number of years. When I bought it, it had Windows 7. I have since then installed Windows 10, so this recovery partition won't do me any good. But since I've cloned my operating system from here to here, I have a backup. It is this partition, the OS partition, that contains Windows and my application software. This part of the window shows our partitions. This is a clone of this one. That's my primary data, secondary data. That's the operating system that the computer boots from and uses. This is a backup copy of the operating system, and then the two recoveries. So it's not really important to understand the concept of the recovery or that I back up my operating system by cloning it. You do want to be able to get to the disk management utility because we will be using it to get the new hard drive ready for installation. And what I'll be doing to get it ready is I will open up the computer and I will physically remove disk 3. I will then put the new 4 terabyte hard drive into the chassis for this 4th hard drive. Then I'll restart the computer. We'll then use the disk management utility to get this new disk ready to be used. Then I'll just use File Explorer to copy the data from disk 2 to disk 3, and once it's all copied, I'll check it out to make sure everything looks good. I'll shut down the computer again, and I will physically remove disk 2. I will then move the new 4 terabyte drive into the disk 2 chassis, and then I will put my clone copy of the operating system back into the 4th chassis, which is, hopefully not too confusing, disk 3. Before we open up the computer, the first thing we want to do is power it off. So close all your applications and then shut down the computer. Once it's totally shut down, you actually want to unplug the computer. The next thing you want to do is push and hold the start button for 30 seconds. What this does is help discharge any residual electricity inside the computer. Now we're ready to open it up. On this particular computer, there's a latch back here that I need to release. Then I raise this, and this allows me to take the side panel off. Located at the bottom in this particular computer are the 4 drive bays. To understand which drive is in which bay, you won't be able to tell, but there's a little diagram here where Dell is denoting this as drive bay 1, this is drive bay 2, this is drive bay 3, and this is drive bay 4. Now, a curious thing about Windows, it numbers your drives not starting with 1, but starting with 0. So the first drive is disk 0, second one is disk 1, third one is disk 2, fourth one is disk 3. You may be able to tell that I've used a black marker to actually use the Windows numbering scheme. So this is disk 0, this is disk 1, this is disk 2, this is disk 3. If you recall from earlier in the video, disk 0 is the system drive. That's the drive where Windows 10 actually resides, and that's the drive where the computer boots from. Disk 1 is my primary data drive, disk 2 is my secondary data drive, and disk 3 is my clone of disk 0. Now it is disk 2 that we want to replace with the new hard drive. And as mentioned earlier, the way we're going to do it is we're going to remove disk 3 and just set it aside. We're going to take the new hard drive, put it into this bay, close the computer up, power it back on, use the disk management utility to get that drive ready to be used, and then we're going to use File Explorer to copy all the data from disk 2, the secondary data drive for me, to the new hard drive. And once that is done, we'll power down the computer, unplug it, discharge the electricity, open it back up, and we will permanently remove my old secondary data drive. Then we'll move the new secondary data drive from bay 4 to bay 3, and then we'll put back this specific drive, which is a clone of disk 0. Then I should be able to power back up and everything should be running fine. So at this point, let's go ahead and remove disk 3. Now, I know some of you read about static electricity. Static electricity is real. It is capable of damaging parts of your computer. If you're careful, you can do this change. The way I do it is I make sure I've got some rubber-soled shoes on, because the room I'm in is carpeted. But I make sure I got everything where I need it, so I don't have to get up and run around. I constantly touch the chassis part. I don't touch any electronics to keep myself discharged. So at this point, we're going to remove disk 3. This cable here is the power cable. This cable here is the data cable. When you're actually using the computer and it's writing data to your disk, reading data from the disk, it's coming through this cable. This cable is just electricity supplied to the disk. Alright, so we're going to pull off the data cable. We're then going to pull off the power cable. You do not pull it out by the wires. Okay? Always grab the plug and pull it straight out. Then push in these two tabs. We now have removed the drive temporarily so I can use this bay. This drive is going to go back into this computer when we're done, because as a reminder, this is a clone of my operating system. But I'm removing it temporarily so I can use that bay. Now what we have to do is remove this plastic chassis. It will be used on the new drive. And of course I have to put the plastic chassis back on this drive when we're done. If you heard about 2.5-inch drives and 3.5-inch drive, this is a 3.5-inch drive, which is the common drive in desktop computers. Now, a curious thing, the operating system drive, disk 0, as it came from Dell, is actually a 2.5-inch drive, but it has a rotational speed of 10,000 RPM. So we want to remove the drive from the chassis. Then we're going to set this aside temporarily. And we're going to open up the new drive. Comes in an anti-static cover. And this one also comes with some screws, because it depends on how the drive is attached. Sometimes you screw the drive straight to the bay or the chassis here. But in this case, this computer uses these plastic chassis to put it in. I've got me one of these duster claws, and I'm just going to go ahead and get some of the dust off this thing while I've got it out. Okay, keep touching the chassis to make sure I'm discharged. Now we're going to open this up. And this is the new hard drive. I'm going to use this plastic one to go ahead and temporarily store the system clone drive that I'm going to put back in there just to keep it protected. I'm going to put this back into the chassis. This connection here is for data. That connection there is for power. And then I want to put the screws in. I want to do that off camera because I need to make sure that the holes in the chassis are lined up with the holes in the disk drive. And I can't do that unless I'm looking straight into it, and then my head gets in the way of the camera and you won't be able to see anyway. So I need to go over here and put in the first screw in. Then I'm putting in the second one. You do not screw them in Gorilla tight. These particular screws are actually screwing into the plastic, and then it's got a little protrusion that goes into the drive. So if you try to screw it down really tight, you're actually going to strip the plastic threads. Get this lined up, and then the last one. Again, it's not Gorilla tight. Okay. We're now ready to put the drive into its bay. And this particular computer goes in until it snaps. Okay. And we're going to reconnect the power. There's really no particular order, whether it's power or data first. Alright, everything's reconnected. Okay, if you're curious about some of the other components, this is the power supply. Those boards, vertical boards there, are the memory cards. That strange looking device inside of that is the CPU. This computer actually has a liquid cooled CPU unit. And these two drives here are DVD drives. So we're now ready to put it back together. Snap the panel in place, lock it in place, plug it back in, and then turn it back on. So we're back at the computer, and I just want to show you something. I'm going to open up File Explorer, and if you notice in here, you do not see the new drive. Here's my operating system drive, my primary data drive, my secondary data drive that I'm replacing, the two DVD drives, but you do not see the other drive. And the reason you do not see it in File Explorer is because it's not ready to be used yet. And that's where we use the disk management utility. Remember how to get to there? Start, Control Panel, Administrative Tools, Computer Management. And let me bring this down. Click on Disk Management. You must initialize a disk before Logical Disk Manager can access it. Select disks, disk 3. Now, if you remember, the new drive went into drive bay 4, but if you recall, Windows does not number its drives starting with 1. It starts with 0. So we have disk 0, disk 1, disk 2. So the new drive is actually disk 3. And it's telling us, as it should, that we must initialize it before it can be used. Now here it's asking us for what kind of partition style that we want this drive to be initialized to. MBR or Master Boot Record or GPT GUID partition table. GUID stands for Globally Unique Identifiers. So, which one should we pick? Well, a couple guidelines. MBR is the older style of partitioning a hard drive under Windows. GBT is the newer style. A limitation to MBR is that it can only have 4 partitions. Now the new drive is only going to have 1 partition, so that's not a limitation. But another limitation of MBR is it can only handle up to 2 terabytes. Well, this is a 4 terabyte drive, so I have to pick GBT. Where this could be a dilemma is how you're going to get your data to the new drive. If I was going to clone the data, and the original drive I'm cloning from is MBR, my software that I use cannot clone from one partition style to another partition style. But since I'm not going to clone the data from the old to the new drive, I'm going to use File Explorer to copy the data. It doesn't matter if the old drive is MBR and the new one is GBT. Now, if you're using a much older style of Windows, you probably won't even see this option because things like Windows XP or Windows 2000, they can't work with GBT. If you're still running Windows XP, you probably should be upgrading your entire computer, not just a hard drive. So we're going to click OK here. Now here's the new drive. It's initialized. It's unallocated, but unlike the others, there is no drive letter. All right, now that we have the drive initialized, we have 2 more steps. Left click in the unallocated area of the new drive, and then right click and select the option New Simple Volume. Click Next. It's just telling us the size in megabytes. We're not going to be changing this information. Click Next again. To assign the following drive letter, it defaulted to the next available one, which is F. I'm going to click Next. Then it has options for formatting. Format is fine with the following settings: NTFS, which is what I want. That's a typical Windows format. Volume label, this is the name it's going to give the drive. This is going to be the new data archive. I don't want to name it data archive yet because then I have 2 data archives out there. So I'm just going to leave it new volume because I can change it later. It says perform a quick format. Uncheck that and it'll take a very long time to format a 4 terabyte drive. But in this case, we're just doing a quick format. So we've initialized it, then we made it a simple volume. Now we're going to format it. Those are the 3 steps. Click Next. This allows you to verify everything you selected. Click Finish. All right, now we have our drive. As you recall, it selected F. It will, once I put things back, it's going to be the new drive E. And I'm going to rename it from New Volume to Data Archive. I'm leaving it to New Volume so I can just keep track that this is the actual new drive. At this point, the drive should show up in File Explorer. Let's check. All right, there we have it. Drive F. So at this point, we can close the disk management utility. We can close these 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to copy the data from this drive to this drive using File Explorer. I just clicked on this drive. I'm just going to click the top folder, hold down the Shift key, click the bottom one. It selected everything, and by default, it's selecting all the other folders and files within these folders. Then I'm going to click, hold, and drag to New Volume. You can see where it says Copy to New Volume F, which is exactly what I want to see. I don't want to see the word Move. I want to see the word Copy. Then I'm going to let go. So it's going to take a while to do this copy. So at this point, I'm going to stop the video, and then we'll pick back up once everything has been copied. At this point, File Explorer has finished copying the files. I also recommend that you open up your new volume, look at some folders, look at individual files, make sure that they're all there as you expect them to be. What I want to do next is I want to go back and change something. If you remember when we did the initialize, and then we did the simple volume, and then we formatted it. When we were formatting it, it defaulted to drive letter F, and I just accepted that. What I should have done was change it to a higher letter, because when I take this drive out and move this and then install back my OS clone drive, my OS clone drive is already labeled F. So that's going to be a conflict there. So I'm going to go into data management and quickly change this letter. I'm just going to right click the new drive, change drive letter, change. I'm just going to make it something. Now when we're all done and I switch everything back, which I'm about to do, this will be in this bay, and I'm going to rename this to Data Archive, which is my name, and then I'll change the letter to E. And I would have to do that anyway. So at this point, we're going to shut down the computer, and we're going to remove this drive, move this one, and put back the OS clone drive. Alright, I've shut down the computer, I've unplugged it, I've held down the start button for 30 seconds to discharge any residual electricity, and obviously I've taken the cover off. What we want to do is, this is the drive I'm replacing. This is the new drive that now contains this drive's data. So I'm going to remove this drive and just set it aside. And I'm going to take this drive, move it to here, and then put back my original fourth drive, which is my OS clone, into here. So first, we unplug them both. Drive comes out. Now we want to put back my original fourth drive, but it's going to need the chassis, and we're going to use a chassis from the drive that I'm replacing. So I will unscrew it. I'm just going to use the duster cloth to get rid of the dust that's accumulated on this chassis over the many years I've owned this computer. Now this was my original F drive, so I'm going to put it back in the chassis. Like before, I'm going to go off camera so I can properly line the holes up in the chassis with this, and then screw the chassis to the drive. Alright, now we're going to put this drive back, push it until it clicks. Then we're going to reconnect all the cables. Now these cables do not click on or snap on, they just push on. So if you try to listen for a click or a snap, you're not going to hear one. They just push on. And it doesn't take a lot of force. Now these cables, Dell's been good to label these. This is number 3. This is number 4. So this is drive bay 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is 3. So this data cable is going to go on this one. And this one goes here. Alright, everything's done. So I'm going to put the computer back together. I want to power it up. And what I need to do is I'm going to use Data Management Utility to rename this drive and give it drive letter E. So we'll return to the video once the computer's back on. Alright, we're back on the computer. And we want to start up the Data Management Utility because we need to finish cleaning some things up. So Control Panel, Administrative Tools, Computer Management. Disk Management. Now, my old drive was Data Archive letter E. So I want to change this name and this letter. However, if you look here, as Windows booted up, it saw that the next available letter was E, so it changed my OS copy to E, which originally was F. So we're going to change this one first. We're going to leave the name alone, but we're going to change the letter. Right click it, change drive letter and pass, change F. Okay. Now it's saying some programs that might rely on drive letters will cause an issue, but we're not going to cause an issue because this is what it was originally. Alright, this is now F. So let's clean up this one. Right click it, change drive letter and pass, change, make it E. Yes, it's now E. Go to Properties. This is its current name, New Volume. We're going to change it to what I want. Apply. Okay. So at this point, everything's done. I can start using my computer as I've always done. I hope this information has been useful to you, and thank you for watching.